Good evening. My name is Nick Monroe, and you know me usually from my written work on WordPress. But given the circumstances, it seemed for the best to do a video on this situation instead. Last night, a comics artist named Merryweatherey posted a video claiming a Kotaku writer blackmailed them, saying they have been harassed and extorted. It's worth noting that the person in question only wrote a few articles for Kotaku on a freelance arrangement and has not worked there in any formal capacity. It got my attention and I decided to look into it further. His name is Christopher King and he goes by the name PingPongCall on Twitter, and I came across two people who worked with Chris in the past. They came forward and they shared some additional concerns with me. First, I talked to Sean Halliday, and then after that, I spoke with his associate and another former co-worker, Steve Tom Sawyer. Both of them had similarly strange dealings with Mr. King. In that sense, it should provide better context for this whole Merryweather controversy. In addition to all that, I got in touch with Christopher King directly, so every so often you'll hear his responses to the topics that Sean and Steve bring up. I hope you find this informative.
So my name's Sean Halliday. I've been writing for about 5 years, but only did professionally this year for a site called Game Raven, and that's where I met Chris King for the first time.
Yes, it is. No, I have DSL internet where I am. Oh, I'm not tired. I'm medicated. No, diluted.
It's Christopher Lee King.
He was kicked off Game Raven because we had suspicions about how legitimate his writing was, for one, because it was always kind of filled with errors, and we had kind of a suspicion maybe some of it was plagiarized from different people. And I was working closely with the person who run the site, and then there was a little bit of a controversy popped up on, I can never pronounce the name of the site, Imager. Chris King was a huge user of this. I didn't really interact with him on there. I didn't really know him beforehand. I only kind of met him when I was at Game Raven. But he quickly added this to Facebook. And it was like, yeah, whatever. You add people to Facebook that you work with. One day, I was getting ready to play football, and a message pops up, and it's Chris King demanding that, not demanding, but requesting that I kind of vouch for him. And what happened was there was a lot of people saying that he was faking the cancer, obviously, that he was suffering, that the GoFundMe was fraudulent. He got really panicky, and he was asking us to sort of vouch for him. And at that point, I was like, I don't know him. I don't really, I'm still pretty new to the game and writing thing. I don't want my name tarnished. So I was like, I'm not going to say anything. I'll just ignore it. When I went on his Imager, there was a bit of a kick up. So that was the 9th of February. And as I said, I worked closely with the editor of the site who kind of decided who was on there and whatnot. And I said to him, we can't really risk this because, there's no proof. We never seen proof he was ill. He was constantly on Discord. He sounded healthy. He's posted a few pictures around that time where he was still he's always been quite a heavyset person, which is another reason why I don't believe he was ever in the military, because he does not physically look like he's ever been fit for military service.
It's 2 tours. One's in Korangal, the other in Iraq. I didn't want to be there, but it's the right thing to do. And 08 to 11? No, it should have been to 12, but I was dishonorably discharged.
Nobody told me how bad it really was.
Nobody told me you had to kill women or children, and I couldn't do it. And I never knew it smelled so bad when someone died. Killed 12 people. 6 were men, 4 women, and 2 children. They approached the line, the women and children anyway. The men drew weapons, and then immediately put me down, and we were ordered to shoot them anyway, because that's what you do. You kill anything that moves.
He was thick. His hair was thick. He's got really thick eyebrows. And for the treatment that he was claiming to go through, he wouldn't have that. He'd be in a really bad state. My dad's best friend, passed away from the disease that he's claiming to suffer from. So that was another reason why I took interest in this, because I was like, this guy, nothing matches. So as time went by, we decided to kick him off the website, delete all his content. And this has happened to him on numerous different websites. I think on Monstervine, he wrote someone there. He's thus been blitzed from there for similar reasons. I don't believe he's ever wrote for Kotaku whatsoever. That's the first time we've ever heard of that. And he was working with us for about a year.
I did 2 freelance articles for them. One was detailing the significance of chronobacklighting as an actual factor in the game's world. The other was about an obscure game for the Game Boy Color.
like I said, I don't normally get in these kind of things, but it was just because it started off as 15,000 and then it was 35,000. And as soon as it hit that 35,000, it went up to 90,000. I was like, when's this going to end? He was getting actors from The Walking Dead to retweet it, notable names in the games industry to tweet it. And I was like, people are giving them money. And I don't like to see good people give away like their hard-earned money to fund someone's lifestyle. And I was like, this just isn't right. And that's why I started digging into things. And I found I've got a bunch of links I can send you over after I've told you the story anyway. Well, we got a Discord, so the people that were on Game Raven. It wasn't a Game Raven Discord, but you know how you kind of get to know people when you're working together. So we just had general chats on there. And he used to, because I used to train MMA, I used to talk about that with Steve, who'll come into the story later, and Kyle again, who will come into the story later. And he used to say these, like, he always came off like he wanted to be part of the conversation and he was willing to lie to be part of it. So he'd say these things that don't make any sense. And when you would kind of respond to it in a bit of a, that doesn't make much sense, you become very aggressive. And apparently that was a trait that he'd been displaying before I joined the website. He had snapped at a young female that we had on who was just mostly, he was streaming, and he called her, from what I remember, he called her the CUNT word, and he got a bit of a telling off from there as for that. And that was another reason why he was partly kicked off. But we never really got an idea of who he was. And some of the things he was saying just never connected or made sense. He would claim that he was able to have influence in different websites because of his large Twitter following. And another thing that I noticed was he was running sock accounts. So it was a little quiet period. I did a little bit more digging, and I've seen that he was getting articles on the Daily Mail, the Telegraph in the UK. And I was like, right, how far does this go? And as I said, there was a bit of a quiet period. I was just concentrating on my work. And then obviously he was off the site by then. And during that time, the cancer thing just kind of really flared up. If you look on his updates, he claimed that he was getting a liver from some guy from Abu Dhabi, but he didn't. The guy who was given the liver apparently never wanted to be identified or shown. So instead he posted Dragon Ball Z pictures. And I was like, where does that Abu Dhabi thing come from? None of this makes sense. I was sitting there and I was like, this is obviously lies, but it's so ridiculous that you can't really call it out because you don't want to look stupid and you don't look a bit crazy, especially with the C word, because obviously if you hide behind, this is the main problem I had with it, if you hide behind the cancer thing, it takes a lot for someone to call you out, because even if there's a slight chance the person's wrong who's calling them out, they'll be crucified. And that was the main thing that always kept us back, because obviously in 2017, 2016, if you're applying for jobs, they're going to look at your social media profile, they'll Google you, and the last thing I want to do if I'm applying for a job in the future is to see, oh, this kid said this guy's faking cancer. And I was like, right, so I need to play it safe. The things I was seeing him say, he was always used to go on Facebook sometimes and saying, oh, I never get any work done now because I've got the cancer. But when I looked at his body of work, there isn't a huge amount there. Like if I Google any given author's name, like such and such video games, you'll get a decent collection of the posts. With him, we never found anything. And that was another reason I was a little bit like, how legitimate is this guy?
You know how I got my first writing job? I did a cold call to Game Informer to Tim Turry, and instead of just hanging up on me, he took the time to talk to me. He told me to get a new game, review it, send it into him. He's gonna give a full critique on it, and he did. Everything started from that phone call. Well, then I got a hold of Steve Butts from IGN. I pestered him for weeks until he let me do an article on Dragon Ball Z, which I did. I got paid for it, but it never got published. But the point there was I got paid for it. After that, I started working for smaller sites that paid for free just so I could get my name out there. I worked for Elite Gamer. I still work for Elite Gamer. I worked for Press A to join. And then I got hooked up with Game Raven, and that was a mistake.
So there was a little bit of a break. I ran the Game Raven Twitter accounts towards the end of the site. It closed in August, so I would say about a month before that I was running the Twitter accounts. And there used to be two accounts that would constantly tweet at us, which was kind of weird because the Twitter was dead. The social media manager did a very good job beforehand. And it was these two accounts that were really kind of abrasive. And they're saying, oh, is this piece of shit site still going? And I was noticing the wording, and I was like, is this Chris? Is this Chris King? And I would look into it. I would see him tweeting the account, tweeting us, saying, no, don't say that, it's not on. But he wasn't following that account, and that account wasn't following him. So how did he know that tweet was going to the Game Raven account, which wasn't really active? And I was like, this is Chris. He's got sock accounts. And again, I now work for a company called Mecha Wolf. It's like a sort of indie PR thing with some of the guys that used to work with Game Raven, and we used to get these messages, and it was this account, not many followers. Again, oh, are you guys still around, struggling, blah, blah, blah. It's just shit talking. I looked at it and I was like, it's Chris King again.
Sean Halliday recently quit. He's another great writer from Britain. He's one of my favorites, actually. He now works for Mecha Wolf. Oh, I didn't go after Sean. I went after Mecha Wolf because what Steve did was wrong. That was me. Yeah. Because they fired me right before, well, the day that we finally sealed the contract. They used $100 for me to fund the website to make it look more professional. And then the second we closed the deal with limited run games, I got a text from Kyle later that day saying that they didn't need me anymore. So, and they just continue to make money.
And the idiot actually posted a screenshot of his Diablo 3 character on that account without realizing. One of the guys that worked at Mecha Wolf had played Diablo 3 with him. He remembered the account name, and then we matched up on Chris King's Twitter account. And yeah, it was the same account name. It was his Xbox Live username. So he was tweeting these screenshots on his sock account, forgetting. I can find it for you because he's recently been retweeting it. Let's have a look. It's something to do with C, and it's got this ridiculously emo picture of this girl looking at the corner screaming. It's like, that's another thing you'll find. He's very overdramatic to the point where you kind of have to think, like, what the fuck is this? See if I can find it for you. That was the main thing. Like, I'm pretty grounded when it comes to people that I work with, but with him, there was just always something off, and the further I got to know him, it was just more and more stuff. Let's have a look. I think he might have deleted it because we did actually call him out on it because we were getting sick of it. It's something to do with C. It tweeted this Merryweather, you know, the kid that he's been arguing with, the artist. He tweeted him recently. Let's have a look. That was one of the things that really kicked it off. And then I just got really annoyed the past 2 weeks. I don't have any affiliation with, like, directly with anyone that suffered cancer before, but like I said, my dad's best friend died from the exact same thing he's claiming from. So it's always kind of annoyed us when someone's willing to try and hide behind this. And I don't like people trying to coast a living. And his attitude, like, he'll attack people. He's got a thing for, I'm not really political, but he goes after, like, Trump supporters and he'll start, like, hounding them for days. And I was like, this guy isn't a nice dude. And I was getting sick of it. So I was like, the Twitter account seems to be his main way of gaining donations. So if I can find some proof to discredit that, then, you know, hopefully people will stop giving this guy money for no reason. And that's when I started looking into his updates. 2 weeks ago, he claimed that he was feeling ill on Twitter, and then Terry, his wife, started tweeting on his account saying that Chris is in a coma, he's in hospital, he's getting treatment.
I didn't feel very well, and my wife had already kicked me out, so I was living in a little apartment by myself. I thought if I got some kind of message out, made it out to the open, there was a better chance of me being okay.
And I was like, this is weird because he's still on Steam. If you notice through his updates, he's very dramatic. He'll say he's got no house. For one part, he was living in a car, but he was still constantly on Steam. And at one point, he was playing Final Fantasy XIV online. And I don't know how good his car's Wi-Fi is, but it's pretty difficult. And again, when he's apparently claimed that he's ill or he's in hospital, even today, he claimed he was in hospital. I can go on his Steam account. He's been playing games today. He was always online on Steam, regardless of what he was claiming on his Twitter account. But anyway, most recent case, he said he was getting... Well, he was tweeting as Terry. This is one of the weird things. He was tweeting as Terry first, saying that Chris was in hospital and he had to do updates. And yet she was still sharing the same links that Chris was sharing for his GoFundMe account. And I was like, it's a little bit weird because normally Twitter, you don't really get to see the face behind it, but you get an idea of who it is, the way that they tweet, especially if it's a writer. Writers have a very specific way of tweeting and you kind of get that style. Every single tweet is the same style with Chris. Every single one. So Terry's tweeting and saying, oh, Chris is ill. You know, she's asking famous people to retweet him. He's giving these updates. And out of the blue, this guy called Matt just appears. And he's tweeting as Matt. He's never mentioned Matt. This guy just appears out of nowhere.
He's just a friend of our family's. Him and his dad worked down in the pawn shop in Philly. We've known him for a long time. They're always there when we need them.
And apparently, Matt's dad is willing to give Xbox X pre-orders, iPhone X pre-orders. I even think he said something about a holiday in LA, and if you donate $15, you get into a raffle. The raffle was a thing that recently popped up, and I was like, who the fuck is this Matt? It just came out of nowhere. He's never mentioned it. There's no proof whatsoever. It's just Matt. I was like, all right, I'll wait a few days. And then about 4 or 5 days ago, he posted an update which caught my eye. Now, at this point, I was looking into it because I was convinced he was lying, but I needed some sort of proof, something just to kind of spark it off. And his update was like, I'm ill, blah, 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 blah. If anyone wants to buy the Xbox One X, contact Matt at Blurgatron 9000. And I was like, all right, I'll Google this. And when you Google Blurgatron 9000, you get a Pinterest in Chris King's name. You get a Steam profile updates. Chris King has used that username 3 or 4 times across Steam. Matt does not exist. That Blurghouse email is Chris's email, another one of Chris's emails.
Said I haven't used that email in years, and it's not like it's tied to anything of any importance. Oh, not important.
He has multiple different emails, multiple different characters, and at this point I'm like, we need to get that kid from MTV and the catfish fella. We need to get him in. This is what it is. I just want the GoFundMe cancelled. He hasn't got cancer. I don't think he's ever had cancer. Another tidbit as well, he stole $350 off the person I currently work with, Steve. I can get in contact with him if you want. I can even add the call. He apologized. Chris King actually apologized about that day, admitting as much. What I don't want to see Chris King in the point. I don't think he's mentally sound. I think he's got some issues. I think he needs help. The main thing I want to stop is people just giving him money out of the nature of goodness when it's really just going towards a huge lie. But at the same time, I don't want Chris King to become in legal trouble. I mean, that might happen. I don't know if he's been declaring it to taxes. Again, I'm British. I don't know how it works in America. I know from personal perspective, I used to work at HMRC, which is the tax office, and you do have to declare donations made into charitable causes. I'm not sure if he's even doing that. I actually discussed them today. You could literally get rid of all these claims if you posted a physical note, your physical medical bill from your hospital. And he came up with this weird story like, oh, well, my doctor's coming to see Joe tomorrow. I've never heard Joe before. And I'm sure he can do it then. And then all of a sudden, he said, oh, Terry's called and said that the doctor's there now and I'm in hospital now, but he's still on Steam. So again, it was just one of them things. I think that maybe he's fucked up financially somewhere. Maybe he just likes the idea of free money. I mean, who doesn't? And he's just kind of grown accustomed to living off this free money for literally no effort whatsoever. And in doing so, he's created this cast of characters who don't have social media accounts. They don't have Facebook accounts. There's no digital imprint. Even on his Facebook, there's nothing there. Like, I even doubt that Chris King is Chris King. It wouldn't surprise me if this guy who Chris King says he is, an ethnic guy in Pennsylvania, turns out to be some scrawny white kid in New Zealand. That's just how long this web of lies goes. We've never video chatted, just voice chatted, and he always sounded perfectly healthy. He always had a bit of an attitude about him. He was incredibly spiky, to the point of, like, if say you were in a public place like a bar, and this guy got talking to you next to you, it was him. If this was the same attitude you would have, you wouldn't really want to talk to him. It's just a weird one. He's got if you look at his Twitter account, he's very, very spiky, almost to the point where it just worries you. And again, it's just the amount of lies he's told. From day one, I thought his GoFundMe was fraudulent. The Shermo updates, the raffles, the prizes, especially recently. At some point, it kind of a Nintendo Switch. He was giving away a Nintendo Switch a while back, and you're like, okay, that's viable, whatever. But then an Xbox One X, an iPhone X, that's over $2,000 worth of gear there, a holiday, and it's just this random email which is linked to his accounts in previous activities in the past anyway. And add to that the fact that he stole money of someone that he worked with, and then he's happy to admit it on public Twitter. And I was like, this is all weird. So. And then obviously what happened today has happened. And I was like, right, well, now's the time to kind of do my bit, send what I know to people and hopefully get this sorted, because it's just not healthy. The fact that he's saying that he was a writer for Kotaku, I don't like Kotaku at all. But at the same time, I don't think that they should have this kind of association with him, this false association with him, which could reflect badly on them when it's nothing to do with them. It's just unfair. Like, as I keep saying, it sounds ridiculous, like on them dodgy D&D characters. I just like the idea of people being honest and, you know, people not getting hurt, even if it's someone like Kotaku, which I don't like. I still don't want to see their site take any damage because of the lies that someone's told. And $35,000 is a lot of money. This isn't like low-level fraud. This isn't like the 350 stole off someone. This is thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars, which just showed no sign of ending. He was getting more tweets off bigger and bigger accounts, famous actors. I was like, when's this going to end? And the main thing, I know I said it wasn't political before, but I know with America, you've got Trump who's talking about a lot of changes with your healthcare. I knew for a fact that if once that went into effect, or if it ever did go into effect, Chris King could angle this in, and it would just be the perfect donation trail for him. It's like, look what my government's done to me. Please, I need the money. And I was like, if that happens, there's no telling how much money this kid's going to make, and it's wrong. It's just wrong. So I wanted to get it cut off as soon as possible. As I said, I've got Steve's contact details. He's got Skype. He can jump on, give you a quick talk.
Sure. It's Steve Tom Sawyer. So I know Sean and Chris through a site that we worked on last year. You know, I was brought on to help straighten some things out, get the site going. I was brought on last May or June 2016 to, you know, kind of get Game Raven into fighting shape, get their traffic stats up, you know, turn them into a reputable video game coverage site. And that's how I met, you know, most of the writers that were there. Chris was somebody who, you know, had written for Game Raven. That's how I came to know him. And one of the first things Chris did was go, here's my GoFundMe. You know, could you please check it out and spread the word and everything? And, you know, I am not an inherently suspicious person, right? And I think all of us want to do the right thing, especially when we're presented with an opportunity to do so, right? So initially, I retweeted him or whatever. I was like, oh, okay. And didn't really, you know, look into it past that. And, like, a few months went by. And like I have said to other people, one of the things that was curious to myself and to, you know, other folks, and these are questions I would get in regards to Chris, like, hey, he doesn't seem like he's losing any weight. You know, cancer usually destroys you. You know, it makes you ghastly thin. His energy level, you know, was surprisingly high for somebody who's going through cancer recovery. And none of these things, you know, on their own are enough to indict somebody and say, like, hey, you're a big fake. And I didn't want to be that douchebag that's going, hey, this guy on the internet's a big cancer faker. I don't think he has cancer at all. Right? So, like, you know, that's never a good look. And so I erred on the side of caution, right? And I'm just like, I'm going to reserve judgment either way, but I'm going to kind of put myself in a position of, like, I'm not making my mind up on this one way or the other right now. And definitely not making my mind up on it anytime soon. Because it just seemed like there was enough there to open up some questions. And that's all I felt. And I had been fairly, you know, transparent about that at times with Chris and said, hey, you know, I just want you to know people are asking goofy stuff. And the first thing, you know what, this is good that we're actually doing this again. Because the first time I talked to you, I forgot about one thing that did happen. Very soon after he launched his GoFundMe, there was a person on Imgur who strongly suspected that something didn't quite line up, and they went onto Imgur and threw a post up that's like, who really is Chris King? And for a minute, it caused a minor controversy. I think Chris, being a little bit more savvy in the ways of social media and how to kind of, you know, attain influence and power over a situation, was able to shout that person down, and they ended up deleting their Twitter account and their Imgur account. Yeah, this dude was like, I don't know about this guy. And he called Chris out. He made a big stink about it. And I think Chris spooked him off enough to where the dude was just like, okay, forget it. I guess I was wrong. So a few months go by. A few months. Actually, that whole thing that I just described to you was enough for the dude who was running Game Raven at the time to be like, I don't know about this anymore. I think you need to find another place to write that's not here. So Josh Robitaille over at Game Raven, and this was around August, would you say, Sean?
No, this was, let's have a look. I think it was in February, because I've still got the Facebook messages, which I mentioned before.
When he was released from Game Raven? Was it February?
it was, I remember the night, because obviously I play football on Thursdays, and it was literally 10 minutes before I was about to leave. Chris popped up with, I need your help, you need to defend us. And I found out why you need to defend him with the whole imager thing, people calling in. And me and Josh had the quick discussion. I laid out my
Well, I'll
reason.
tell you something you're all discovering right now. My sense of chronology is fucked. I will say this, though. So that is, I can remember, maybe not the dates, but I can remember the order in which stuff happened. And for sure, it was this imager controversy. And as a result, there was some blowback. And that blowback was he got released from Game Raven. So right there, that sets a precedent. Before anything else, before he ever knew Mary as a person in his mouth, a name in his mouth, anything like that, he had already kind of created enough curiosity around his antics to where one person was like, not here, dude. Just, I don't know heads or tails, but it's enough for me to be like, no thanks. And when he asked me about that, and he was, pretty dramatic about it, oh, I remember this too. He, replied to that action and posted a thing on Imager about Game Raven. And Game Raven was a place that was not without its own problems at the time. I'm not going to sit there and try to sugarcoat that either. But I will say this, I was telling Chris, I'm like, I don't think you're going to make anything better right now by retaliating. And you're definitely not going to get your job back or get more writing work in the future by going after somebody who previously employed you, right? And he actually, I'll give him credit. He saw the reason in that and was like, you know what? I'm going to apologize to him. I'm going to take down the post. I'm like, good boy. He just knocked that off. And so then some time went by and the Mary thing kind of came up. Now, I don't know, what it was, that got Chris and Mary talking initially.
When he came to me asking me for help to write his side of the story about what happened with Samurai Buyer. My side of the story is I wouldn't write a hit piece in Samurai Buyer. Once I got the entire story on the situation, Daniel became furious. He started going after people that I work for, seeing if they would help him with it. They wouldn't do it either because it's stupid.
I don't have, the context on that, but I do know that, at some point, they really fucking didn't like each other, right? And that's when he, was messaging me and saying like, hey, this kid is going around and talking a bunch of shit and he's saying this and he's saying that. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's a kind of odd thing. And right around this exact same time, I was getting my last check from Game Raven. It's just weird how those two things lined up. And the last thing that happened over at Game Raven was, they switched to PayPal, right? And so the only way I could get my last check on my last week there was if I had a PayPal account. And, I don't have a PayPal account. So I was like, Chris, you have PayPal? Want to help a dude out and want to be a PayPal? I was like, and help me out, dude. I'm going to have them send you this money and, transfer me, some bucks and I'll let you hold on to a little bit, favor for a favor. And he initially agreed and was like, yeah, dude, it's not a problem. I'm so happy to help you out. What are friends for? All that jazz. And, a couple days turned into a couple of weeks. It became clear to me like, okay, I don't think I'm getting my money back, right? So then I call him out on it. I'm like, dude, I need you to just kind of tell me what's what, on this money. And he goes, dude, I have some bad news. It turns out somebody reported my GoFundMe for fraud and it froze up all my bank stuff, but I have some good news. I've been talking to an attorney and he's agreed he's going to take on my case pro bono. And not only that, he's going to give me the money to pay you back, for the, a few $100 that I still owe you. I have only had a couple of experiences with attorneys in my entire life, but both in those limited experiences, it has very much been when I call them, I get a bill. Right? And so it was either that he had encountered the least competent attorney in the United States of America, or he was just lying.
I had absolutely no money, and Josh, the guy who ran Game Raven, wouldn't pay any way other than PayPal. So Steve gave the PayPal money to me, and then we had a problem getting it to him with his weird bank. I don't remember what it's, Capital Blue, I think. It took so long that I got to the point where I didn't have any medicine. And I don't know if you know what Salsept is, but it's incredibly important and very expensive. And so I used that money that actually wasn't mine to buy that medicine.
And at that point, it just seemed the path of least resistance to go, you know what, I'm guessing it's a lie. Right? Like, not a huge logical leap. And that's when I was kind of like, I'm done with this. So I asked my business partner at the time, Kyle, I want to know who this is that we have, kind of opened up our business to, who we have been trying to work with. I want you to find out everything you can about this guy. And he starts digging, and he's able to find some stuff that, like, he's able to dig up some stuff. I'm trying to collect my thoughts, where he was like, I found this Bitcoin forum. He's like, and it's his name, PingPongCall. And he was like, it looks like he's trying to trade access to a bunch of different accounts, and a lot of them were his journalist accounts and all this other stuff. And this was from earlier in the year in 2016 that the date on the post was. But what it was very clear. It was essentially, if I receive $250, I will give you the login information for these following things. One of the things that stood out, and this was the way that Sean was able to find it, was he had his Game Raven stuff in there.
Look, I get that it's ridiculous and hard to articulate, but one of two things was happening there. The catalytic converter on our car had broken, and my daughter needed clothes for school. Do you have kids? Well, when you do, you will do the worst kinds of things to make sure that they have what they need. Without a car, I can't get her to school, and she's going to end up like me if she doesn't go to school. Just a fat sack of shit who can't do anything.
It, like, clearly said, Game Raven. And so, like, at a certain level, right, at the very least, the suggestion there was that at one point he had opened up the door to the possibility for somebody to, like, subvert his account on Game Raven and be posting stuff as Chris, and have whoever that was, like, clearly not be Chris, right? And so it was like you're selling access to, like, your journalist accounts, essentially. And, that of its own is pretty bad, right? But then it was like, then we looked again under PingPongCall, and we started looking up other stuff, and Sean was looking for stuff, and I'm looking for stuff, and a couple people I know were like, it wasn't, again, when you're looking for things, it's not with an intent, right? It's not like I'm looking for only bad things to prove my opinion that this person is a piece of shit. It's more of like, I'm looking for stuff because I don't know what is up or down at this point, and I need clarity. And the more that we started, digging, the weirder it got. And one of the other things we found is it was a post on a forum that was meant for recovering drug addicts.
The drug recovery forums were part of a post loop thing where you would make 10 posts a day on different websites. By the end of the day, you could make $50. Because I'm disabled and couldn't work, so I did everything I could to make money. Yeah, I have children, and when I'm extremely sick and I can't work, there's nothing that I won't do to make sure that they have what they need.
I believe. And it was essentially, I'm doing great now. I got this writing gig. Things are really turning around for me. I think things are going to look up. I'm hoping this will be the start of it was essentially very hopeful. Things were turning around. And the one thing that just, again, that of its own, would not be a weird thing or a big deal if that was all you were finding out about somebody. Everybody has past, right? We've all got things that we've recovered from in one way or another, right? You're trying to be open-minded, right? And be like, hey, you know what? Maybe he did have an issue with drugs, but he's a good writer now, and he gets his stuff in, right? So whatever. But these in succession, combined with the Imager accusation from a little while back, and all this stuff started, like, forming a suggestive pattern. And so then at that point, I felt like I had an obligation to say to somebody who we worked with at the time over at, Will at Monster Vine, I'm like, Will, I just want you to know, dude, like, there's some weird stuff going on. I'm like, do you have anything like that you know about Chris? And I'm like, trying to kind of poke and be, like subtle and not, just like, hey, this guy's up to some shady shit. I was just asking him, do you like have anything you might want to share about Chris? And he was just straight up like, yeah, dude, my staff does not, like, they have some suspicions. They have suspicions. He's like, and this come up time and time again in conversations. He's like, have you seen, what he's up to on Twitter at times? And this was right in the middle of this Merryweather thing. And I'm like, context? He goes, well, more specifically, have you seen this, thing where he's in a fucking Twitter war with somebody right now? I'm like, I'm aware of it, because he would talk to us and tell us, like, yeah, I'm dealing with this kid and I'm just fucking... And so, then Will is like, dude, just with everything that I dig up on him, he's like, it's not even that I can prove anything one way or the other. He's like, it's just not worth the drama. He's like, because this dude is radioactive is the word he used. He was like, it's just literally like everything around him is just, affected by his presence. I'm like, it sure seems like that. He's like, no one else on my staff is getting into, Twitter fights with people. Like, nobody else is shit. And I'm looking at it like that too. It's just like, again, during all of this, he's supposed to be going through treatments and he's super sick and all of this stuff. And like, we briefly discussed that would take an emotional and a physical toll on your body. That would be very pronounced, I would think. A little bit of time goes by and, obviously we're like, I don't think it's in our best interest to work together on projects anymore, obviously. I was like, there's a lot of people who are saying a lot of weird things. I was like, and you just have to respect the position you put me in. I go, all of that notwithstanding, you stole a bunch of money from me, right? So, like, I don't, just everything else aside, me personally, I just, fuck you, dude. You literally took money from me. You lied to my face about it. You strung me along about it. You were making no attempt to ever get that money back. You couldn't even just be straight up and be like, yeah, you know what? I had a moment of weakness. I saw it in my account. I kept it. My fucking bad. I'll try to make it up to you somehow. Right? Nothing. And I was just over it. I'm like, you're gone. And we banned him from our Discord. I blocked him on everything. He sent me a text message a couple months later. I'm so sorry. I know what I did to you was fucked up. I just wanted you to know I used that money for medication. Like just this text message out of nowhere. And he's like, just want you to know I still love you guys and wish you all the best. And I'm just like, are you kidding me? You take my money. Then you literally have the temerity to send me a text that's like, hey, I know what I did to you was fucked up, but I needed it for a thing for me. So, that's how that goes. I'm just like, look, even if that were the case, you needed money for medication, like, let's be real. Like, you're going to ask your friend, like, hey, dude, I need a couple $100 for some medicine. Like, I'm going to say no. So then, Chris and I used to play a lot of Diablo and Destiny together. We would talk about Diablo builds quite a bit. It's one of the things that I pride myself on being a giant nerd about is, DPS specking. That's my thing. So I would constantly be trying to help Chris build for, I think we were in season 10 or something on Diablo 3. And we talked a lot about Diablo and talked a lot about Destiny because we played those things. I only bring this up because his screen name on PSN and on Xbox One is Cheeto, the letter N, Dorito. Cheeto and Dorito. And a few months after the text message, this is actually just a couple of weeks ago, we got a tweet out of nowhere from this random Twitter account, Cinderscar. And it was just like, at Mecha Wolfpack, I see you're failing at, doing any marketing stuff for anything other than Devolver titles. Which is like, maybe not a well-kept secret at this point. We do marketing for Special Reserve games and for, the physical editions of some Devolver stuff. We're just kind of some weird little behind-the-scenes monkeys. But he knows that. He's one of the few people that knows that. So there's that, right? It's like, that's an oddly specific thing for a random person on Twitter to like do really specific. But then the kicker, he actually had a screenshot of his Diablo 3 character. I shit you not, from his Xbox One account, from his Xbox Live account. And he had that on his sock puppet account. And I was just like, you've got to be kidding me, dude. You can't be this stupid. You can't be this fucking stupid. I tweeted at him from my personal account and went, hey, dude, just a quick FYI, when you're tweeting at us and talking shit, you might want to take out the screenshots that prove that it's literally you. Like, literally, there's nobody else that has that name on Xbox Live, dude. This is you. And he's tweeting at us from this other account, talking shit, like throwing all this shade to me, my former business partner, the whole 9 yards, and then at Game Raven, because he's just airing out all his grievances, I guess. And I replied to him, what I just told you. After that, he tweeted at himself from his sock account. Or no, he tweeted at himself from his main account at his sock account. So he tweeted from PingPongCall at Cinder Scar. I thought I told you to stop. I'm not joking, dude. And that's when I was like, Sean, this dude's literally talking to himself, beseeching himself to stop doing a thing he is doing. Like, at that point, that's when I was like, I'm out, dude. I was like, I have no idea what is going on with this guy. I was like, but fuck me, dude. That's some fucking crazy shit. It's just bonkers, right? I mean, I know he's lying for a fact about, some very specific things. Do I think there's the possibility that if Chris has lied about that many things, that he is lying about more things? I am not a mathematician, but I will leave it to those who are good at basic arithmetic. I had a conversation with him verbally, and this is the last thing I was able to say to him before I was like, all right, man, I don't know what's going to happen. It just seems like you're in a pickle. And what I said to him was, I go, you do understand at this point, like, you have opened enough questions that I can ask you, is Chris your real name? And have that be like a valid concern. And he goes, yeah, I get it, dude. Yeah, all I want to say is this. I don't know who Chris is outside of what he has presented us, outside of the person he has presented us. I was never approaching this situation with the intent to indict Chris, to get Chris caught up in, a situation that would negatively impact his work, his future, his livelihood. I am just not, that's not in my interests, and beyond that, I would like to think, if anything, that I only endeavored to find opportunities to connect Chris with, as any friend would do, I would think, right? And so just over the course of time, like I said, you have to draw a line in the sand, and for me, it was when I personally was stolen from. Chris wants to say that he used that money for medication or whatever. Again, it doesn't really matter to me. It was just that betrayal of trust. And for me, that, in addition to all of the other things, that I was able to, to find about Chris and everything else that he was up to, was just enough to make me want to walk away from the situation. I don't know what the future holds for Chris King, but I know I don't really want to be involved in whatever it is.
Everything I do is wrong. Every step I take is bad. There's always a better decision. I just don't see it. And now I'm not going to have the time to see if I can ever fix it. And that hurts. Why does it hurt? Because I never wanted to be a bad person. Back in 2011, Terry's parents live with us. Because, they're old. The mother has fibromyalgia, and dad's lungs are deteriorating. I can't remember what it's called, but I think it starts with an A. So we live here, and there's property taxes. Terry won't work. The grandparents can't work. I needed to find a job. So I looked at all the jobs in the area, and I was trying to time them right with Black Friday. And once I found out which ones would be open on Black Friday, I had to go in and assess which ones would be leaving their electronic doors open as opposed to closing them, locking them for every sale. Turns out that was Sears. They would left their games bin open, and I would take a few games, put them in the desk, finish my shift, walk over to the GameStop in the mall, and I would sell them. And I did that for almost 2 weeks until I had enough money to pay the property tax. And on the last day, I was arrested. I told them what I did. I told the lawyer what I did. We talked about it. The lawyer understood why he did it. He was a really cool guy. He waived his attorney's fees. So that was just another example of me being a piece of shit and nothing happening because of it. It's just something that kills me. I've always been like this. I've always just survived. I moved out of my mom's when I was 13 because she's a psychopathic, drug-addicted alcoholic. He used to just beat the shit out of me for fun. I did not have a father. If people want to say that I'm faking this, then that's fine, you know? And if things don't get better, or if I don't find a better treatment, then one day I just won't be. And then everyone can move on to something else. There's been too many surgeries, too many medications, and it just keeps coming back. You see the way that I talk to Dan. I'm respectful to him. I want to help him. I don't talk like I was raised in the hood. Yeah, it's alright. I've been through this internet bandwagon thing before. First it was with Imager, and then Sarah had to come in and set things straight. Then it was on Facebook. And whoever the fuck their manager is had to set it straight. So I guess it's Twitter's turn. Or YouTube, actually. I think, yeah, YouTube. But don't worry. The truth about Dan will come out. There's enough people working on it. He's not going to be able to hide behind his victim card much longer.